Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Modern Overman. Okay, so for today's video, I want to talk about Arc Raiders. This has been taking over my life for at least the last, I think I've got about 60 hours in the game so far, but I mean, like, every weekend I've been playing, every couple of days I've been getting time in. It's been absolutely fun, and it just feels so fresh to play compared to other games. And the reason why I'm wanting to talk about Art today is just that it has been just over a month now since the game launched, and I feel like it's been doing nothing but good things. Obviously, there are some changes that we'll talk about that I would like to see and that other players I know have been expressing, but I just want to kind of stick to just my own opinions for the most part, and especially my experience with other um, extraction shooters and other first-person shooters and third-person shooters, that whole wide variety. I kind of want to just keep my experience the primary source, and then we'll talk about what other people want as well. But I guess just the first thing is that what I really appreciate about Arc Raiders is that it does feel fresh, even though it is kind of it is a further distillation of what kind of makes this genre what it is, and I feel like they have, I don't want to say necessarily perfected it, but they have gotten goddamn close to it, you know, and we're going to be talking about the reasons why I think that. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? And the first thing we're going to be talking about is sort of the immersion factor. So as far as immersion is concerned, I feel like one of the biggest things that this game has going for it is its sound design, and that comes in a couple different ways. A lot of it has to do with, I feel, a mixture of how the guns sound and how overall like world sounds come in together, as well as how the arc sounds as well. I feel like it's such a good mixture, and it's kind of like this. I know people talk about, you know, just the overall aesthetics of the kind of, you know, NASA punk sort of deal, whatever you might want to call that, but the sound design specifically, I feel like, is kind of giving that, again, it's sort of a retro futuristic vibe. You know, the soundtrack that we'll get into here in a minute, but I just feel like there are so many things contributing to it having a good feel, especially with good headphones, as I'm sure you'll notice. Like, and I've talked about this before in the live streams, that I did get new headphones that have a more immersive sound, a more immersive soundscape, you know, that I have available to me, but also a new mic. So again, I'll just say right now, apologies if I'm still getting kind of EQ'd, and you know what is the best sound, but I do feel like that the sound of the game is super important to how immersive it feels. And what I will say, in comparison to a game like Hunt Showdown, which used to be my primary game, is that the sound in that game was very good, but the issue is that when they switched to the new engine of Hunt Showdown, CryEngine 2, or I don't know, no, not CryEngine 2, but like the latest engine of CryEngine, I feel like they kept adding more and more sounds to kind of muddle the overall soundscape of that game, and so it sort of started to sound not bland, but like there's just too much going on. I feel like Arc Raiders has a good balance. Like, there's a lot of good ambient noise and good music, and then all of the sort of weapons and arc and everything like that, and proximity chat kind of add to like a really good mix, and I feel like they kind of nailed that. Maybe it has something to do with like Embark being ex-DICE devs. I'm not really sure. I didn't really used to play a whole lot of Battlefield. I think the most Battlefield I played was the campaign of Battlefield 3 and the all of campaign of Battlefield 1, like the World War 1 Battlefield, but that's really it. As far as the other side of immersion, is that the whole social aspect of this game has been so much fun, especially, like, you know, since I primarily play solo, I don't really play in teams. This game, there's just a lot more good faith, and maybe because it's a newer game and the AI enemies, the Arc, are such a threat, that a lot of people are like, oh my god, like we need actual cooperation to take down these enemies some of the times, or they can just be overwhelming. And so people are hesitant to engage in PvP because they don't have any backup and they don't want to lose the gear that they just spent like, I don't know, 5 or longer minutes like trying to take down a bastion, or like who knows, how long and how much time investment people have put in, to getting their gear out, and especially like, the time constraints during a match. I mean, all that kind of stuff I think contributes to people being more hesitant to engage in PvP. Not to say that people don't, because people definitely do, and I do it on occasion. But I think that just overall the social aspect is just so much fun, and it's such a different feel to the game than, or I guess it's a different feel to this game than other games that have a similar, game loop to it. And I think what's fun about it is that it is kind of opt in, because you can't really opt out of that experience of like, oh, there's necessarily going to be people running around the map, and I might have to deal with them. Like, you're going to be in. And so what's kind of fun about it is that if you want to be a friendly player, then you can choose that. If you want to be an aggressive player, you can choose that. And then, the way you respond to other players is also kind of in your court. But at the same time, you're all having to deal with the Ark, and the Ark, their goal is if they spot you, they're going to try and kill you. And I think that because of that constant, and then, the dynamics of social interactions, kind of like the real world, I think it's just so much fun. And I think it really adds to that immersion factor. But I think what we'll touch on next is sort of the overall aesthetics of the game. So speaking of the aesthetics, I think the first thing that I'll talk about is that when I initially saw this game being previewed by, streamers and other players online, I was initially like not attracted to this game at all. I was so
chill, man. Chill.
At the time focused on Hunt Showdown and appreciating that gritty aesthetic. Okay. Was kind of more my style. That grimy 19th century world of, I mean, you could say Wild West, but not really. Just like that grimy old world feel. Like, that's kind of more my aesthetic that I really like the most. But I think there's something to be said about what Arc Raiders is doing in another one of my favorite, I don't want to call it genres, is not cyberpunk, but that sort of kind of Blade Runner-like feel. And I know people will say like, oh, Blade Runner or cyberpunk, but it's not really. It's more future noir. But there's something about the kind of retro futurism of Arc Raiders that I really do love, and I kind of mentioned that a little bit ago. But like, I'm a kid of the 90s, like I grew up during that time. I grew up like with these sorts of colors and not really music per se, because like the synthwave and like all the kind of poppy stuff, I wasn't really listening to that as a kid, but like I appreciate it existing from that era. And I think what's cool about this kind of level of sci-fi is that it feels really grounded, which is interesting to say, because like obviously it's futuristic, but we can kind of imagine something like this happening. You look at a lot of other sci-fi, properties, or intellectual properties that kind of deal with this sort of, similar ideas, and they just, I don't know, there's something about them that don't feel very realistic. I mean, recently I played Hell Is Us, that sort of new weird Souls-like puzzle game. I played it like a few hours on stream, and it is, I feel like, trying to do something similar, but also with like weird, like, I don't know, like fantasy elements to it as well, and like this grounded, gritty European post-apocalypse or something like that. I don't know exactly what to call that per se, but it's very similar. Even the third person style kind of adds to that, but like that doesn't feel realistic at all. Like the environments in that game to me don't feel very realistic, whereas Arc Raiders, I feel like, oh yeah, people used to live here. There was thought going into you know, how the maps are laid out, like, oh yeah, people like used to do shit. You know, it all kind of makes sense and is cohesive. And I feel like that um it just, I don't know, it just kind of all works together, and I really appreciate it. I didn't think this is something that I wanted, you know, or was looking, you know, to be into, and yet like it was kind of answering that question. It was a gap. I didn't know that I wanted it. um and then speaking specifically, again, you know, I spoke just a little moment ago about the soundscape. The music is also really good and really adds to that sort of atmosphere. Again, I don't want to call it cyberpunk. It's kind of like, you know, retro futuristic, you know, synthwave, and I just I love that shit, dude. It is so good, and I think it just adds further to the game's overall aesthetic. And aesthetic isn't just, you know, art style; it also is soundscapes and music and everything like that. Um, which maybe I'll tease here, but I am working on a Dark Souls video and aesthetics that is going to be a while in the works, but it's going to be coming next year. So keep an eye out on the channel for that. But yeah, I think why don't we go ahead and move on to the next topic, which are kind of the story of the game and quests. So as far as the quests are concerned, and the overall story, I'm going to be combining those two topics kind of together. I'll just say that the story, you know, I like what's going on in the world. I do feel engaged and interested. Now, I haven't been like delving deep into the codex and watching a bunch of YouTube videos. I'm just kind of letting the overall experience and kind of like the environmental storytelling and hints as to what's going on in the world. I kind of just let that like just come as they go, and not like necessarily wash over me, but like I just take it, you know, I take it in stride and like just kind of absorb it all, and like, yeah, like think about it, ponder it a little bit, and maybe I'll do some more deep dives into it a little bit later to better understand what's going on. But overall, I feel like there's just kind of, it's intriguing, and I think that's enough to keep my attention. You know, like, why are these robots here? Why are these machines here, rather, taking over the planet? You know, and just the environmental storytelling is really well done with, you know, like spaceport, I think, is one of the more striking you know, visual map details, with like the big launch pad, and like, okay, people are trying to like escape here. How long ago was that? Like, I mean, there's clearly animals still alive up topside. I mean, there are birds, and I've even seen like rats like in certain areas of the game, and plant life seems to be flourishing okay. And so it seems that the Ark are really just here to exterminate the people. Now, there have been some people saying that, like, oh, you know, it's because these wealthy elite, like, they escaped out of orbit because, like, the Earth was, like, dying, and so then they sent the Ark to stop people from coming up. I don't know about any of that. You know, I haven't really gotten any of that from the quests. But I'm still intrigued. And on the quest, I think that they're good with dropping certain story beats. But I do think that they can get, and this is kind of a criticism, and we'll go into criticisms next that I have of the game, but I do think some of them can be a little bit repetitive, you know, some fetch quests and like, oh, kill this enemy. But at the same time, what I do appreciate the quests is that they all are designed for you to engage with sort of every aspect of the game. You know, like, oh, they teach you how to gather resources and how to do a little bit of crafting if you want, and then how to like manage your inventory and scavenging for certain resources. But then they also introduce you to like every type of enemy, and like they take you to every map, and they're like, you got to do certain things on each map, and you got to be paying attention to certain details, because this is going to be how you survive. This is how you are going to be finding resources to do your crafting and to you know, look for blueprints and everything like that. I feel like the quests are designed really well on making sure that you see a good portion of the game while still allowing, you know, you for like, oh yeah, I can go and explore and find new stuff that I didn't think was over here. And we'll talk about the maps here in a little bit, but excuse me, I think that
it's over here.
they're overall pretty well designed. They just feel a little bit repetitive at times. And I know that they are going to be adding more content with more quests later on. I think this month, I mean, we're going to be getting a whole host of new content updates and everything like that. So I very much look forward to it. But we'll talk about kind of like future updates towards the end of the video. But with that in mind, why don't we look into some of the criticisms I have with the game?
No problem.
So I have just a couple main criticisms of the game, mostly two, but you could put them into three different categories if you would like. And the first thing that I have that I want to talk about is sprinting and overall mobility. You'll see in this clip that I have right here that there are times where, like, I feel like I'm pressing down to sprint, and there is some sort of delay, even though I have stamina going. And maybe I'm just a smooth brain idiot, and I don't understand what the hell I'm doing wrong. But I do feel like sometimes the delay in sprint feels a bit unintuitive, and I would like that to get kind of smoothed out later on in the game. Maybe it just takes some time to get used to, and again, I'm an idiot, so you know, be that as it may. The other thing I want to talk about is sort of the terrain, and I know there's a clip in here somewhere that you'll probably see it. If not, oh well, we all know what we're talking about, though. What I'm talking about is that sometimes you'll be climbing up a hill, and your character, your raider, will get kind of stuck on some rocks and then just slide back down. And that is really frustrating, especially as you are trying to run away from Ark or trying to run away from another player, but mostly Ark a lot of the time. And you just are clipping, and it's just like, oh, no, we're going to fall back down here. So I'm not really sure what's going on. It's just, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when there's so much other polish going on in the game that the devs have spent a lot of time on, that it feels a bit like an oversight. And I would like them to address that in an update, and hopefully we'll get that soon, because I feel like I'm definitely not the only one complaining about that. I've seen it a lot online and in YouTube comments and on the Facebook groups, and so I definitely think that that's something they're going to be addressing at some point in the future, hopefully sooner rather than later. Again, it's mostly minor, because now I'm kind of getting used to where those problem spots are and trying to avoid it, but every once in a while it feels like I should be able to just climb over these fucking rocks, or should be able to like climb up this small little hill, but I'm sliding down, that sort of thing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you.
And the other thing, the last thing that I know that people complain about is the skill tree, and I don't necessarily have like a problem with how the skill tree is. I do think that they need to up the level from the max levels from 75 to 100. That'll probably alleviate some people's issues with the limited points going into each skill slot, but I do think that skills themselves need to be more fleshed out in what they are actually providing. What are the benefits? What are the percentages of certain aspects that the skill tree is providing to your character? That sort of thing needs to be fleshed out more in just description. It can't be that hard, right? I'm sure it's just like a little bit of like, oh, we just need to add a little bit of extra flavor text to what this is saying in order so it's just more clear, so people make better decisions, because our skill points are limited and our levels are limited as well. And so we just want to be able to make the best decisions as players for our build. Obviously, you know, the other side of the coin is the expeditions, and basically, you know, your raider wipes, and so you can start fresh again with a better understanding. But for some people who don't want to just keep doing that, they don't want to spend the time, they're maybe a little bit more casual of a player like myself, and I don't even feel like I'm that much of a casual player. I do think those need to be more fleshed out, and more yeah, just more care needs to be go into explaining what all those are. But I think for the last little bit of the video, we'll talk about some wish list items that I have and stuff coming in the future that I'm really looking forward to. So for things that are coming in the future of Arc Raiders, we obviously know that this month of December, at the time of recording, they're going to be dropping some new content,
Not a good sign
especially
at
some
all.
new quests. I believe some new enemy types. I'm not entirely sure. They already dropped some with Stellamontis, but the are also going to be adding the winter condition to the map, so it's going to be really cool to see. It's going to be interesting how that's implemented in Stellamonta specifically, because this is mostly an indoor map, and so I'm curious if it's just like, oh no, that's going to be the other maps. But so we'll see exactly how that is. As far as like other conditions in the map, I know that like there is rain and like some really cool times of day, and then there's also even a little bit of like a wildfire on a couple of the maps for conditions. I don't see that all that often. I would like to see it more often. Maybe like an actual like raging wildfire might be interesting in some areas. Not sure how you would do that on like, you know, like Buried City. I'm not exactly sure, but it would still be interesting to see. Other conditions, maybe like, I don't know, maybe like a really
This is all
bad
very
like
interesting.
thunder and windstorm, is like for a raid or something like that, because there are definitely raid conditions, like the um not just the night raid, but the thunder and electric storms. Maybe I guess that's kind of where that belongs. But I'm sure there's other conditions that we could do that would be really fun. Um that would change the dynamics of like how we engage with the map and how we engage with the arc. As far as the maps themselves, I've spent the least amount of
Oh my
time
god.
in Stellamontis just because it is the newest one, and I feel like me personally, I was trying to do all of the earlier quests in the game before going on to Stellamontis. And it definitely is the hotbed of PvP right now, with all the corridors and corners and like having, overall higher difficulty enemies and better loot and all that. Um, I do feel like that's where the most PvP is going on in Stellamontis.
No, I'm not gonna
But it's
sit there and break
still
that.
really interesting and fun, and I like the overall design and aesthetic of that map as well. Overall, all of the maps I really like quite a bit in the design. I think I do like Spaceport the most. I don't know, it seems
This
the most
is
striking to me, especially since
way
like
bigger than I
just the
fucking thought it would
environment
be.
itself, like it's almost desert like, in not like a sand dune sort of way like Bird City kind of is, but like it has a kind of a high desert feel, which I really appreciate, which is kind of what I'm used to, and so I like those aesthetics.
All I know is I
um
should fucking
for
probably
future maps, I think it would be cool to
extract
see more of
because
a
I'm gonna get
heavy
fucking
forested map, more of
I'm
a
gonna get
map
stuck in
maybe
here,
up in the
dude.
mountains, maybe around like the volcano, or maybe some volcanic craters, stuff like that. I think would be really cool. But in the future, I think it would be really fun, and this is like pie in the sky, like I really hope we get this, is like a moon base. Like maybe we'll get it to where
Super
something
container.
along the story suggests that we can take a rocket and take the fight directly to the Ark. And maybe one of those options is having a moon base. And then, I'm sure it'd be very similar to Stellamontis, but then also a map on a space station, I think would be really fucking dope. And I don't know how they would work that out. I don't know if it would be zero Gs, or there would be platforms where there was gravity and platforms where there wasn't, something like that. And have like just, with that sort of idea, you could have even more interesting arc designs as well in zero G, because like yeah, I don't know, it would just be really interesting. Like the flying enemies would work really differently, and then the ground-based enemies wouldn't necessarily work in zero G. So it would be really interesting to see how they would change that, especially because like so much of the enemy design is based on physics, and I'm just very curious in like how that would work out. As far as like other enemies, like new enemy designs, I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like an open book, and like all of the ideas and possibilities are really expansive. I haven't fought any of the much bigger enemies like the Queen or the Matriarch. The Shredder on Stellamontis is still, I still have not killed one yet. So I need to spend some time with that. But I'm sure there's like interesting enemy designs that they've got up at their sleeves that are going to be just really interesting. But I think overall, like the future of this game is really bright. You know, they've said it themselves, like they want this to be a 10-year game. And obviously that's kind of daunting, you know, because sometimes I do feel like games should be inherently limited. Like they come and they go and that's fine. But a game like this, I just feel like it has so much potential and it's really fun, like getting into it now, starting from the ground floor and, you know, hopefully all we can go is up. So with that being said, I think that's going to be it for the video today. I'll let the last, you know, 5 or so minutes just kind of play out so you can kind of see the last little bit of experience. But overall, I am loving Arc Raiders and I can't wait to see what it's got in store next.
Okay, Cosmo Adventures. Nice. Nice.
Let's go to that location.
You good, bro? Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, friendly.
Yeah,
Apparently, yes.
yeah, I'm just trying to find the containers.
Hey, I'm trying to do the same thing.
Okay.
I think. Do you think they're? I was gonna check the loading cargo docks over by the loading bay.
Yeah, I just watched a video. I need to. They're saying
Are you guys looking for those
the
white
loading
containers?
bay. Yeah.
Yes, go to the loading bay. And there only should be like 2 or 3 that are going to be white. The white ones are the ones you want to search.
Okay.
Okay.
And they're probably they sometimes vary on where they're going to spawn, but sometimes they'll spawn on one end or the other.
Okay.
So where's loading bay? Which way do we go for loading bay?
I've got it marked on my map, so if you want to follow me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you. This is only like my 3rd or 4th time on this map, so.
Yeah, I usually don't do it very much either.
A lot of people do PvP on this map, it seems like, so.
Yeah, they do. Solo isn't too bad. I'll just sit here last week.
Oh, okay.
The droids. Androids. So yeah.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. I think we're here, so. Fuck. Same deal happened to me. All right. And there's another dead guy right over here, so. All right, well, I can see why there's a pain in the ass down in here. All right, GG's.